Hello, everyone. I am Neil Edward Levin, board certified clinical nutritionist and product nutrition educator for Now Foods. And today we're going to be talking about nutrition and immunity for the Positively Natural trade show. So give me a moment. I'll get my slides up and we will begin. First of all, I'll put some of my credentials on the board. I am the Senior Nutrition Education Manager for the Now Health Group, which includes the Now supplements and other products. I'm a co-founder and a corporate officer of the American Nutrition Association. I'm also a board member of the Clinical Nutrition Certification Board, and I'm a team leader of their Scientific Council, which writes the test questions. I'm a corporate director of the Mid-American Health Organization, a 13-state regional trade show, kind of like Positively Natural. I'm a former technical advisory board member for the Non-GMO Project, and I've also been a committee member for the American Herbal Products Association and the Council for Responsible Nutrition. So why are we focusing on immunity? It's because today's world is full of challenges to our immune systems. And if we compare the difference between cold and flu, we can see that there are some significant differences. There are 3 main strains of flu, and there's 100 different strains of colds. A cold will affect the upper respiratory tract, and flus the entire respiratory system, including the lungs and the lower system. For colds, the symptom onset is gradual over a few days, and with flu, it's sudden. There's typically only occasional or low-grade fever with a cold, but it's characteristic to have a higher fever for a flu that might last 2 to 4 days. Headaches are usually mild for colds and typically severe for flu. Aches and pains would be mild, if any, for colds and often severe for flu. Chest and cough would be moderate with typically a hacking cough for a cold, but common and sometimes severe with a flu. Sore throat is common in a cold, more so than a flu. Runny nose is common in a cold, more so than a flu. Fatigue and weakness is typically much worse and lasts longer for a flu. Extreme exhaustion would typically be a sign of flu and not cold. Seasonal, you will peak in the winter months for both, but most cases of flu are concentrated between late fall and late winter. And antibiotics do not help because these are viral infections. They can help against a secondary bacterial infection, but they have no effect on the virus itself. So, according to experts, there are no effective treatments to prevent rhinovirus infections, the common cold. Treatments are typically limited to symptomatic relief. So we have antihistamines, nasal decongestants, analgesics, and they typically will relieve that symptom by only 15 to 25% at the peak of activity. And of course, these are medications with significant side effects. So they do not prevent the common cold. They can reduce some of the symptoms, but not eliminate them. So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has told us to protect ourselves against the flu. Use a tissue, throw it away, wash your hands, use hand cleaners, and avoid contact with sick people. To that, we add the modern social or physical distancing and mask wearing. But while antibiotics won't help, there are a couple of flu drugs, Tamiflu and Relenza, and typically the instructions are you must take them within 48 hours of the first symptoms, and they will only reduce the symptoms duration by about 1.5 days. So if a virus, a flu, say, is going to last for, say, 10 days, they might only last 8.5 days if these drugs work as promised and are taken as directed. However, these drugs have been challenged as being ineffective, especially Tamiflu. The manufacturer has been challenged to present their data and says that they lost it, even though it's supposedly published research. They lost the data that the research is based on, so it cannot be reanalyzed by others. And public health agencies who have spent billions of dollars stockpiling Tamiflu's generic version are doing it based on a flawed study that was supported by the drug manufacturer. So there's little evidence that these drugs will actually work. The other thing is people can get flu vaccines every year. In some seasons, the protection is lower for people who were vaccinated previously. And immune response to vaccination suggests that repeated vaccination can weaken the immune response to vaccination, which is the whole reason why you're taking a vaccine, is to get an immune response that will generate an immune memory to that virus. In this case, it seems like if you get vaccinated against the flu every year, that vaccination may become less and less effective over time. And this has been a concern for people for a long time, for over 10 years. And one of the reasons is because if you're exposed to a virus, it stimulates the immune system to create antibodies, but it actually facilitates the entry of other strains of that virus into the body. It weakens your defense against other strains, even though it might create an immunity to that strain. So what is the efficacy of the flu vaccine? According to data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, looking at a 15-year average of 40% efficacy and a 5-year recent average of only 35%. That means people who are getting the vaccine are only about a third of them are getting immunity to the things that they're taking the vaccine for, to the annual flu. And the 2018-2019 estimate was only 29% efficacy. So there's really two main branches of how the immune system works in the body. One is called innate or non-specific immunity, and the other is adaptive or specific immunity. And the innate or non-specific immunity is immediate. It does not use antigens, which are substances that the immune system recognizes. And there is no memory to what your immune system is attacking. The immune system, I like to use an analogy of, in the military, you might have scouts that go out, but the scouts are armed. And if they run into somebody trying to infiltrate, they can attack and take them out without knowing who they are or what they are or any details. They don't have to remember them. They can act immediately. Now, if the attack is too overwhelming, you have to call for reinforcements. And that's your specific or adaptive immunity. There is time for antigens to trigger antibodies. There's a lag time that might be hours or even days between the exposure and the response. And there is a memory. And this is one reason why people get vaccines, because they're trying to develop this adaptive immunity where they're exposed to the antigen, and then their antibodies will be produced with a memory of that substance that triggers an immune response. So the virus is the antigen in essence, and triggering antibody production against itself. But it does take time. It's a responsive, not an immediate effect. So the non-specific or innate immunity is hardwired. It's a rapid response. And it immediately prevents the movement of foreign pathogens in the body. And this type of immunity includes not only immune cells, but physical barriers like skin and mucous membranes. And the second line of defense is your adaptive immunity. And it consists of T cells, B cells, and antibodies. But there's evidence, and this gets to the topic of our presentation, nutrition and immunity, that the nutrient status of the host can affect the genetic expression of viruses. How do viruses act in our bodies? And there's evidence that that is related to nutrient status and some specific factors. So a well-nourished body is considered an unsuitable environment for a virus and inhibits the ability of that virus to replicate and thrive. And this is something that's been known for probably about 100 years, is that malnutrition makes you more susceptible to infectious disease. The classic example is vitamin A deficiency and measles. Someone who's deficient in that vitamin is more likely to get measles, is more likely to get a severe infection, and is more likely to die from that infection. So the difference in how severe that disease can be in a malnourished host was long thought to be solely the result of the immune response being impaired. However, not only the host, the person, and their immune system can be influenced by nutrition, but the pathogen, the virus itself, can be. So viruses have been shown to become more virulent, more aggressive and dangerous because of changes in their genomes, gene expression, because they are reproducing in someone who is lacking the key nutrients they need for a competent immune response. So viruses themselves can become more aggressive if they sense weakness. And if you think of the old example of a predator culling the herd and attacking the old and the weak and doing that kind of process, you can understand that the virus is using the same ecological signaling. If it senses this is someone, a weak prey, it's going to become more aggressive and attack. If it senses that it's a strong prey, it is not going to waste a lot of energy on it. And why are there viral changes in how the genes are expressed and in how it acts in our bodies related to nutrition? And it seems to be concentrated in the area of oxidative stress. Increased oxidative stress affects the reproduction rate and the intensity, the vigor of the virus itself. For example, mice who are deficient in the mineral selenium, an antioxidant mineral, were more susceptible to viral infections and were more likely to get severe infections even if infected with a mild strain of influenza, of flu virus. So it's much more dangerous to be infected if you have oxidative stress than if you don't. So mutations in the virus occurred, and the common mechanism for these changes was oxidative stress in the experimental data. So that's the importance of nutrition. You can optimize your immune response You can also do the opposite to the way the virus acts. You can slow down the virus by reducing oxidative stress with adequate nutrition. There are other factors besides oxidative stress we'll talk about in a few minutes. So when we're looking at nutrients and other ingredients that support immune competence, we really have to look at the role nutrition plays supporting the immune system. The things that are in a multivitamin, vitamin A, B, C, D, E, folate, which is a form of B vitamin, trace minerals including zinc, iron, selenium, magnesium, copper, omega-3, all play roles in the immune system. And this was published in the journal Nutrients last April. Inadequate intake and status of these nutrients are widespread. Another factor is GI health. There's supposed to be a layer, a physical layer, protecting our bodies throughout our digestive tract. There are mucous membranes, there are tight junctions, there are physical barriers that mean that you have to digest something to pass through these barriers. And if you don't digest them, they're just going to pass through you, ideally. There's also a layer of what are called biofilms or biological films, a film being like a layer of probiotics. So biofilms can be probiotics, they could be nasty stuff like candida, but they form a physical and functional barrier. And hopefully you have the right stuff growing and not the stuff that's undesirable. Hydrochloric acid produced in the stomach is part of our immune system. It helps you digest and break down foods, and it helps to sterilize what's coming in to reduce the challenge to the immune system. This representation of how the barrier works shows on the right where you could see proteins that are digested can pass through these tight barriers and go into deeper into the body, leave the digestive tract in essence. And on the left where there's damage, you're actually triggering an immune response to those proteins instead of digesting them properly. This is actually considered one of the potential causes of autoimmune problems, where people's immune system are attacking their own cells. And that's related to training the immune system to attack undigested proteins, improperly digested proteins. So digestion is part of our immune competence. To have a good barrier of probiotics, you need to have the good probiotic strains. You need safe strains. You need them to be well identified with RNA, DNA genetic testing. And you need to use strains that have clinically proven health benefits. The way to identify which strains of probiotics are being used is using the riboprinter. And this is something where Now is actually the first manufacturer in North America to have a riboprinter and be able to confirm the strains that we're using are there and identify any other strain of bacteria that might be in there. So we're able to confirm the strains we're using and confirm that other strains are not present. But the only way to really establish the quality of a probiotic is by doing studies. Human clinical studies are the key. And when you're looking at studies, you can see strains like the Bifidobacterium lactis BLO4 and the Lactobacillus acidophilus LA14. And there are studies you can look up on PubMed or other sources that will show you the types of studies that are being done on the strains that companies like Now are using. So you know you're going to be getting strains that have a role in helping our immunity. The other thing is if you're taking antibiotics, you do want to continue to take your probiotics. And as this chart indicates, taking a strain like our BLO4, you can continue taking it during the probiotics, continue taking the probiotics during the antibiotics, I should say, regimen. And as you see, you can maintain or even increase your probiotic status even while you're taking antibiotics. An antibiotic regime is not a reason to stop taking your probiotics. It's a reason to continue to take your probiotics. And probiotics exist in the mouth as well as in the gut. And they are a line of defense. There are disruptive influences to the bacteria in our mouth. Stress, disease, aging, medications are some of them. There's a strain called Bliss K12, and that's one of the most numerous bacteria in the oral cavity. It's probiotic. It also grows in the digestive tract. It is not limited to the upper respiratory tract and the mouth. And it competes with other organisms. So it produces substances that discourage the growth of undesirable cells, and it competes with them by growing itself and taking that ecological niche. And when you supplement with Bliss K12 lozenges or powders, it does migrate throughout the oral cavity. It helps guard the entry into the inner ear as well. And it helps discourage bacteria that can cause hydrogen sulfide, which is a cause of bad breath that could be caused in the mouth by having undesirable bacteria buildup. Now, the next category of products I'd like to speak about is botanicals, plant-based products. One of the most popular in this time is Andrographis, and it has been shown to modulate the production of immune cells and cytokines. Modulate means to balance, to raise or lower. So it acts kind of like an adaptogenic herb in terms of adjusting to stress by raising or lowering the body's response. So it does help to support a healthy, balanced immune response. Elderberry, also more specifically known as black elderberry or Sambucus, provides protection against oxidative stress. You'll recall the stress on oxidative stress earlier in this presentation. And not only has the anthocyanins, which are free radical fighters, but vitamins A and C, which are also antioxidants. Now, there's an interesting product called Epicore. It's an ingredient that helps the immune system. And again, it's initiating a proper immune response at an appropriate time. It's something that helps balance or modulate immunity. There have been at least 7 clinical trials on Epicore. There's a reduction in symptoms and recovery time, and supports immune system markers that actually led to less lost work or school time. Another substance is the beta-glucans, which are a type of carbohydrate that are in the cell walls of grains, yeast, mushrooms, and other types of organisms. And it's believed that it serves as a prebiotic fiber to feed the probiotics that are involved in immunity. So beta-glucan may be a major reason why the oriental mushrooms tend to work, why extracts from grains such as barley or oats seem to have an immune effect, or some of the extracts from Saccharomyces. And these are some of the useful varieties, certainly not a comprehensive list, but it shows you kind of a range of immune mushrooms that are used commonly in formulas. And the olive leaf extract, it helps maintain healthy respiratory function and helps modulate immunity. And of course, the oleorubins are free radical fighters, which reduce oxidative stress. Again, we come back to that as a factor. And vitamins and minerals are also important. Vitamin C has roles in immunity, the growth and function of immune cells, the production of antibodies, and it's an antioxidant, so reducing oxidative stress. Now, immune cells do tend to use a lot of vitamin C. And what this chart shows, this was actually a study we solicited at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. And we studied the alpha lipoic acid added to vitamin C and rose hips versus the vitamin C and rose hips alone. And we looked at the rate of absorption into immune cells, and it was about double the rate when alpha lipoic acid was added at about 10% of the vitamin C level. So alpha lipoic acid, another antioxidant type compound, another oxidative stress reducing compound that supports vitamin C, actually increased the absorption of vitamin C into immune cells, which is, by the way, known to be deficient in diabetics and people with insulin and blood sugar problems. This was a study that was done by a different researcher showing that vitamin C in the cells increases if alpha lipoic acid is given too. And this third chart needs a little explanation because it's showing for the first hour or two a similar rate of absorption between vitamin C alone and vitamin C with alpha lipoic acid. After that period, if you look at the 2-hour mark and beyond, there's a distinct difference between how much vitamin C is circulating in our bloodstream, in our plasma, and it's actually lower if alpha lipoic acid is given. Why would it be lower? Because it's allowing more of the vitamin C to travel into the cells. And the reason why that's important is vitamin C in most mammals, not humans, but in most mammals, is made from blood sugar, from glucose, and is chemically similar to glucose. You can actually move vitamin C into cells through that vitamin C channels that go into the cells. The vitamin C can move into the glucose channels into cells. It would be a better way to say that. So alpha lipoic acid is maintaining insulin sensitivity. It's helping you transport vitamin C into cells. And if vitamin C becomes oxidized, which it typically will, it can reduce it back to the antioxidant form. So alpha lipoic acid has been called the universal antioxidant because it not only supports other antioxidants, but it's both fat and water soluble, and it gets into all those tissues. So alpha lipoic acid has a double role, both as a transporter and a recycler of vitamin C. Vitamin D has been called one of the most important immune nutrients. And I can tell you, people are buying and using a lot of vitamin D these days. In fact, researchers report that the active form of vitamin D that's made by the body, prevents excessive expression of cytokines by modulating the way that the immune system works. It enhances the power of macrophages. These white blood cells have a stronger weapon. You've upgraded the weapon if they have vitamin D. And it stimulates the expression of the immune cells and the cells lining the respiratory tract where they protect the lungs. So vitamin D is something everyone should have adequate amounts of to maintain immunity. And it is one of the most important factors in innate immunity, in that immediate immunity that we need. And people who are inoculated with virus, what this is people who get a vaccine are more likely to get fever and an immune response in the winter if they're have a low vitamin D level. People typically have lower vitamin D levels in the winter. And respiratory tract infections, especially lower ones in the lungs, are more frequent in people who have low vitamin D levels. If you want to protect the respiratory tract and the lungs, you have to have adequate vitamin D. Selenium, another antioxidant mineral, and animals who are deficient in selenium in those studies do worse than those whose diets were supplemented. Selenium modulates immune response, and again, it can reduce oxidative stress. And its role is making proteins that function as cellular antioxidants. It also is involved in modulating immune response and cytokine production, which have been factors people have been concerned about over the last year. And a lot of the minerals will work by making enzymes, like zinc and selenium work partially by making enzymes such as the proteins that function as antioxidants, are combinations of selenium with other things. Same with zinc. Zinc affects both innate and adaptive immunity. It reduces oxidative stress. It supports over 200 enzyme systems in the body. And some of those are involved with growth, development, and immune function, especially in respiratory tissues. So with that in mind, let's discuss a few of the now products for immune support. This is not a comprehensive listing, but just to review some of them. We do use the Bifidobacterium BL04 and the Lactobacillus acidophilus LA14 strains that were shown earlier in a number of our products, actually in most of our probiotics. We do have a ribo printer, and it confirms the strains that we're using, including LA14 and BL04, BL05, LP115. They all have studies on immunity. The oral biotic lozenge is formulated with the Bliss K12 strain that supports ear, nose, and throat health, reduces bad breath, and provides prebiotic nutrient support. The Allobiotic CF, a very, very unique and interesting product, contains the black elderberry concentrate 50:1 and the olive leaf extract and the rosemary oil, which are all things that can reduce oxidative stress. It has a unique garlic extract that's high in allicin. Allicin is a compound that's normally made only in fresh garlic, not dried, and it's released as a gas typically if the garlic bulb is damaged. It will produce this gas to kind of sterilize the surface and prevent mold. So what happens is they typically will crush the garlic under running water and capture this gas and dry it out and concentrate it. And then you have a powdered version you can add to products like this with standardized to that allicin compound. ALLICIN is typically how it's spelled. And that has to be protected from stomach acid, so this is an enteric-coated capsule. It's actually one of the little football-shaped soft gels that's enteric-coated, so it's easy to swallow. We also have oil of oregano and the arabinogalactan from Larch, the immune enhancer product from Relenza, which is a prebiotic fiber. So this is a very unique immune product. Air Defense,
Interesting product, and one that I actually developed myself as the initial formulation. This was actually originally a response to the airborne products. And we didn't like the vitamin A was way too high in their original formula to be safe. They used Chinese herbs of unknown concentration and safety with heavy metals or things like that. So I formulated one with the more traditional immune ingredients used in the West mostly. I put a more reasonable amount of vitamin A. I included the zinc, selenium in there. This has the paractin, the andrographis extract. It has the elderberry, echinacea, the immune enhancer from larch, the olive leaf extract, astragalus, ginger, a little bit of arginine, glutamine, and lysine, which are all involved in immunity. So this is a nice formula to take if you think you're going to be in some immune challenging environment. It will help maintain your defense against any kind of immune challenge like that. And now does have beta glucans, and our product has actually been the subject of 5 different studies at the University of Louisville, which is interesting. It did come off very well in those studies, by the way. And colostrum. This is from the first 24-hour milking of cows. The cows, of course, are not allowed to have antibiotics or those kind of things. And they certainly leave enough for the babies, because this is what they produce after they give birth. But it does contain 25% IgG immunoglobulins, a minimum of 0.6% lactoferrin. It helps increase bioavailability and absorption of nutrients and a healthy GI tract. But the immunoglobulins are the ones involved in immune memory. So you're actually producing a lot more cells by taking this orally. You're making a lot more of these immune memory cells available to the body, where you can mount a stronger immune defense with your adaptive immunity. We also have super colostrum that combines it with the immune enhancer, olive leaf, astragalus, and eleuthero, the formerly known as Siberian ginseng. We have elderberry zinc lozenges with some propolis and slippery elm to be soothing. Epicore Plus Immunity has that Epicore ingredient, along with vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, selenium, olive leaf extract, and of course the Epicore. So that's a balanced immune response. Immune Renew has the 8 mushrooms that were listed earlier. In addition, there's an equal amount of a standardized, very unusual, standardized astragalus root extract. So it's 200 milligrams of each per capsule. And the mushrooms are certified organically grown. That's our blend there. And don't forget multiple vitamins. If you want vitamins A, B, C, D, E, selenium, zinc, copper, all those things I was mentioning as vitamins and minerals, they're in a multivitamin. A multivitamin gives you those. You might want to take extra D or C or some of those things, but this is your base. I highly recommend a multivitamin for immunity. Quercetin with bromelain is extremely popular over the last year. It's a non-citrus flavonoid, typically extracted from either Japanese scholar tree or a South American tree leaf. And we combine that with bromelain, which supports healthy immune response. Bromelain, contrary to popular opinion, has not been shown to help absorption of quercetin. It should be taken with fat for best absorption. And Resperol, another popular formula that combines quercetin with nettle leaf extract, bromelain, licorice root, just a small amount to help adrenal gland. This is about 4% of the level that would cause an adrenal problem. So that's not anything to worry about, blood pressure and stuff like that at this level. But it does have vitamin C, pantothenic acid. Vitamin C and pantothenic acid are more concentrated in the adrenal gland than any other part of the body. So it does help the body adjust to stresses. And it does have some zinc as well. So the B vitamins and vitamin C support immunity. Quercetin helps with free radical fighting benefits and other things in the body. Bromelain's the pineapple enzyme that helps digest proteins and debris that's made out of proteins in the body. And there's products like the Efficacy elderberry, which I really like this because it's 500 milligrams of a 10-to-1 elderberry concentrate per packet. So it's like getting 5 grams of elderberry concentrate. But it's an effervescent sugar-free formula, and it has transport C plus and includes the alpha lipoic acid to increase the absorption and act as another antioxidant type compound. So when I showed those slides about vitamin C uptake into immune cells and increasing the potency of vitamin C in the body, that's what the transport C plus is in this product. It's also used in our AlphaZorb C capsule. Vitamin D, the RDA increased in 2010. The daily value, which is actually the value that shows you a reference amount on product labels, supplements and foods, only increased recently.
It's actually at the start of 2021 that we're supposed to have the new daily values on product labels.
And a newer product called Eldermune. It's a 65-to-1 certified organic elderberry that's juiced. It's a water extract of, or actually a concentrate, not even an extract. So you juice elderberries. It's got all the components except the fiber. We've added a little bit of sun fiber, which is organic hydrolyzed guar, as a prebiotic, because when you have a liquid, you have to spray dry it onto some powder. And instead of using corn maltodextrin, we're using the sun fiber, organic guar. And it also includes 200 milligrams of non-GMO vitamin C. And a couple other options you might want to be aware of. We did purchase the Super Nutrition brand. It's still a family-owned brand as it always has been, but now it's owned by our family. And this is a product that's a super immune multivitamin. So if someone wants to try to get all this in one, it includes 180 micrograms of vitamin K2. It's got lots of strength, 4,000 vitamin D. You probably don't need a separate vitamin D with this. 1,500 vitamin C. You can see you're getting some significant amounts of things in here. And selenium is 250. It has an immune herb combination at the end that you can get one bottle instead of buying a bunch of bottles and take up to 8 a day with meals as you like. And the promise on the label is feel healthier in a week or get your money back. Go figure. And the Super Nutrition C1000 with zinc is simply that, 15 milligrams of zinc with 1,000 C. If you're trying to boost the level of those two, maybe your multi is weak or you want to get extra of these or you're not taking a multi, this would be a good way to add that. So with that, I've finished the presentation. You've made it through to the end. Congratulations. You now hopefully know more about nutrition and immunity and are ready to be proactive in helping your immune system to function properly. Thank you.